from the Lodz ghetto, telling her story from the day the Nazis first took over her town.
The Nazis took over on September 3rd, 1939. I was then, I was 15. I was 15 years old. My schooling was interrupted. The first I did is round up Jews, call them to work. Then after a short time, about 2 months, we had been forced to wear the Juden star, the yellow star. We were not to go out from the house by 5 o'clock. We had to stay in the house from 5 to 7 in the morning. Around November, they started to form the ghetto. They started to send people. We lived in the part where the ghetto was formed. They started to send people from out of the ghetto, mass, hundreds and thousands of people were walking into the streets with little things they could carry with them to the ghetto. And the ghetto was closed May 1st, 1940. After this, the first summer in the ghetto was a very hard summer. It was really not organized. There was not enough food. There were big lines for bread. The only thing we could get is barley and bread. It was not limited, but we couldn't get it. There were lines. Then was a black market, and it was expensive. People sold some fancy things to buy the bread. It took about till fall, till the ghetto was organized. Like the leader used to say, "Zet klappen was Eigel," and it is the truth. He started to form resorts, places to work, different kind. The main was tailoring. There were but in the beginning, it was not so easy to get into a place to work. The first summer I didn't work. Later on, they formed a place where they sewed straw shoes. This was the place where I worked, made shoes. And this wasn't the time when they have, around 1942, 41 or between, when they went for Russia, when they encountered this cold weather in Siberia, they needed straw shoes to cover their boots. And then I worked at the straw resort. And this is what the place I worked all the time. In between, my mother worked too. My father passed away in 1941. There was the worst winter. It was the hunger. There was not enough food. There were long lines for the kitchens for the soups, and then we did not. It was the coldest winter we have ever known in Lodz, and there was no coal to heat the houses. And this was the time when my father passed away, so I was left only with my mother. My mother worked part-time in a kitchen in the beginning, and then she worked when they started to send away the people to the concentration camps, they sent back the clothing. And my mother worked in a place where they sort the clothing out. This was Altmaterial called. still did not, the food was very scarce. There was no heat, but somehow I survived with my mother. We managed to get through different selections. The selections were to send away to work. Very often we hid during those selections. Sometimes I hid my mother. I was young. I went down. And I was sure, of course, nobody could be sure, but I tried and they passed me up since I was young and I could work. There were different kind of selections. In 1942 was a sperre. They took the people, they sent them then to call. This way we knew they're going to the crematorium. I hid my mother and I went down, but my mother was then sorry. She was very worried, but somehow I was lucky. And I was spared. Then there was a selection, they put out lists from the places where we worked. They put out lists, and everybody on the list, they send them away too. This did go, I don't know exactly where the place was, but nobody came back. This was, my mother was on the list, but I knew somebody who was between from the commission which could help me, and I went to him, and she was spared this time. And this was a very short time before they liquidated the ghetto. Well, it's impossible to tell the whole story. I skipped a lot, but I can't remember every detail and every date. I do used to, but I don't. When they liquidated the ghetto, they told us they transferred us to another place. We did believe it and we did not believe it. I made it too short anyway. But we didn't have really a choice. They did congregate the ghetto people in a small place. And there was no place where to hide. So we had to go. We left in 1944. Me and my mother. I was sick on the train. Right when we were on the train, we knew that we are going in a bad place. We didn't know where. But when I looked out the windows from the train, somehow I had a feeling we are in Silesia, that we are going to Auschwitz. We didn't even know too much about Auschwitz. We were so locked up, we didn't know anything, really. We just heard a little, and we tried not to believe. But we didn't know. When we came to Auschwitz, we got off the train. The first thing I saw the men were separated. The women had to walk a little farther. I was still with my mother and with two neighbors. And we thought we'll stay together. We did while we stayed together. We were very friendly with the neighbors. And right when there was the selection, they sent me left and my mother right. I cried and I told them, and so one of the neighbors was over the right too. So I thought maybe they'll send me over there too, but they didn't want to. Two Jewish couples, I don't know who they were in Auschwitz, they dragged me away because they knew where the other side is going. So they really dragged me to the left side. And this was the last I heard of my mother. This was the place where I was separated. We came to Auschwitz. the routine, shaving, undressing, bathing, gave us some clothes to put on. A tall one got a short dress, a short got a long dress. And they took away the shoes, which was the worst part, to walk on the rocks without the shoes. And then they drove us, they didn't drive us, we walked to the barracks, where they looked like in a zoo, barracks for monkeys, 10 in one part on boards. Well, it's too hard to relive the whole thing. I was in Auschwitz 3 days. One time, they walked us to the bathroom once a day. There were holes through. I met a cousin of mine going to the bathroom. I've never seen her anymore. It was by accident. I didn't even know that they left together. They must have left a day later than we, but I met her there, and this was the last I saw him. I was in Auschwitz 3 days. The second day we had a selection again, and we were going to on the transport to work. Again, they took away our clothes, changed our clothes, and we have a bed. And this time they gave us a slip and a dress and a pair of shoes. And we were waiting 2 days outside, 2 days and 2 nights outside, till the train will come to take us to the transport. We didn't know where we're going. Days were very hot. The nights were very cold. This was at the end of August. In daytime, they fed us bread and honey. And the honey stick to us, and we didn't have where to wash it. I remember one time I saw somebody washing a table, a halfling too. I ran there to get a little water to wipe off the honey, and they almost killed me. I couldn't eat, but I held the bread in my hand, so it was coming down. At night it was cold. The assessment was sitting and watching us, and we were freezing, so they threw us down a blanket for 10 girls, 1 blanket, and they had fun while we fought over the blanket. Everybody wanted a piece to cover one part of the body. We prayed that a bomb will fall and kill us, but it didn't. And on the 3rd day, they took us to the trains. We didn't know where we're going. I don't remember how long we traveled in the train, quite a while. A day or 2, I don't remember. They gave us some food, but the Jewish halflings told us not to eat it. It was cheese, bread and cheese, and they said if we will eat it, we will die from the thirst. We did not have enough water in the trains. From there we went to Christianstadt. This was somewhere in Germany. It was a place where only forests and camps. Our camp had 1,500 girls. There were 500 Czechoslovakians, 500 Hungarians, and 500 from Poland. We were the last one. The camp was operated by the Czechs mainly. This was a working camp. There were some people worked at ammunition. Some people worked there at the building sewers. And some people worked mainly in building we worked. Me, they taught to lay brick. For a while, they taught us to lay brick. Every day I worked on the premises, on the camp, Yes, what else? We chopped wood for the diesel trucks. I really didn't know what for this is. I found it out after the war. I didn't know what they used it for. The little trees chopped. I worked for a while, for about 2 months, on the premises, in camp. We did build a wall. They taught us how to lay brick. We started in the morning, we took it apart at night. It really sounded foolish. It sounded like they just wanted to keep us there. After they said we know enough how to lay the brick, they took us out to work to build a latrine by an ammunition factory. We just started to dig a hole. We just were digging. It was 20 girls. Then the winter came. It was around November, but at this part of the country it was very cold, even snow. And it was a place where must have been far from a city, because if the weather was cold, the train didn't come in, and the trucks didn't come in, and we didn't have any food. So very often we didn't get food because it didn't come in. They couldn't get it to us. We had appels, sail appels every morning. Every morning we had to get up 5 o'clock. They came, they knocked on the door with the rifle. And we had to get up. It was dark. We had to stay outside even though it was cold or rain. And they count us, and we started for work. Got our breakfast, and we started for work. At night we came in, we ran in the kitchen to get again the supper. There were lines, and if somebody came in late, they ran out of food. We didn't get anything. We had one of the German officers. Somehow she found fault with us every week. So on Sunday when we didn't work, we didn't get to eat. This was the, what do you say? Oh, the punishment. This was the punishment. If she found fault, either sometimes she forgot to count somebody, she thought somebody's missing. Every week she found something, so Sunday we didn't get food. Around in November, I was sent away from this camp. I don't know why. They sent away 20 people to Parshnitz. It was a different camp. I don't know why it was the reason. Our block eldest that was sent with us too. I don't know why, what she done wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. And they sent us to Parshnitz. This is an episode I really will never forget. We went by civilian train, and our German, the Lager eldest, that she was a German, she went with us. She was not bad. And we went by civilian train. We had to transfer, and we had to wait overnight. I don't know which city. But the Germans traveled so heavy, and everybody looked at us, they knew something, who we were. We were marked with a cross on the back, a yellow cross. We got clothes, we got coats, and we were marked with a yellow cross, so we couldn't run away since we traveled with a civilian train. And they looked at us. Some of them threw some food at us. And then the travel, I don't know how far it was, but we traveled 2 days. We came to Parshnitz. Parshnitz was a camp run mainly by Polish. And then over there we worked in Weinreich it was, and Weberei, I don't know what else they did. They made some thread. It was winter, very cold. It was in Czechoslovakia in the mountains. It is Parschnitz by Trautenau. And it was very cold snow. I had pair of wooden shoes, but no socks and no stockings. I had a dress and a coat. That's all what I had. When we came over here, those girls over there had their clothes. They have been sent around 1940, and they used to get packages in the beginning from home, and they had their own clothes. I knew how to knit, so somebody, a machine operator, made me some knitting needles. And I got me some thread and knit myself some socks, stockings. It was an awful cold winter. Even the German officer, she was surprised to see us walking barefoot in this time of winter. That camp did not have appeals. In the morning we got up, we got food, and we went to work. And I was there up till May. It was through the liberation. In the beginning I worked at the gas masks. I cut threads at gas masks. It really wasn't hard work. But later, and it came closer to the end of the war, they closed the factories, and we had to go out to build trenches. We had to walk 7 miles, and we built trenches. Somehow I got out of the building the trenches at the end, because I went to the doctor then, and they told me I had a rupture. I was so skinny. I really didn't have no rupture, but I was so skinny it looked like a rupture. So I got out of building the trenches. One time in winter time, it must have been around January, when they liquidated Auschwitz concentration camp. Men passed by our concentration camp when they drove. I don't know where they took him, but they came in overnight, a stopover in our camp. They kept them in a separate barrack, but through the walls we talked to the men. What happened from there with them, I don't know. They took him to the trains. Some girls had later to go clean up at the trains. They said they probably killed them. They were not sure what they done with him. This was a horrible experience. We worked up to around the beginning of May. We knew it's coming to an end. By the 5th of May, we didn't work, we didn't do anything, we just stayed there in this camp. And the Germans were outside. They kept us inside the barracks. Inside, it was not a barrack, it was a factory. We were in the building. And they were outside. They were not sure who is coming in, who is going to liberate the city. They were afraid of the Russians. And they thought maybe the Americans will come. But around 8th of May, they were still outside. We knew it's coming to an end, but we didn't know who is coming. But in the morning, May 9th, all of the Germans were just standing outside with baggage and waiting for who's coming in. And then they ran off. Everybody, all the leaders ran off, and we were left alone by ourselves. So we walked out the camp and stayed in front. We didn't know what to do. And by evening, the Russians came in. The Russians liberated us. Some of them were sick. They started to give us a little bit better food right before they ran away, and some people got sick. And the Russians came in May 9th. The war was over May 8th, but May 9th we were liberated. We were still in the camps. We stayed in Parshnitz till the end of May in the camps. We got more food. We got food to eat. Of course, we couldn't eat too much because a lot of people got sick. And by the end of May, when trains started to run, not regular, but certain distances, I decided to go back home and see if I have somebody. Somebody's left. I had sisters. I came home, it was about beginning of June. I came home to lodge. The first night I came in, stop it. Lodge on a Sunday evening. Lodge was liberated since January, and this was beginning of June, end of May. I came back. Lodge was pretty normal. The first night, we didn't know where to go. We go to the Jewish committee. This was located Shudneyska 32. I don't remember exactly. And we stayed overnight, since it was late at night. We were 3 girls together. And the next morning, we went to our houses to see what is left. Since we lived in the ghetto before the war, I went back to our house. The ghetto was in ruins. I went back to our apartment. I found nothing much was left, and I found some papers, some of my school papers. And my mother did bury behind the wall 2 sewing machines and her candlesticks. She thought maybe after the war we'll have use out of it. Well, this was in place and I knew about it. I went back one day and got it out. I sold the sewing machines and I left some of the candlesticks. I couldn't carry. I met some neighbors from before the war. One neighbor was left. She was between people which were left in the ghetto and they were liberated there. So I looked around and I saw I couldn't find anybody. I said, I'll probably leave ghetto. I stayed with a friend of mine. The 2 sisters and a mother and an aunt. I stayed with them for about 2-3 weeks. Then I found out I couldn't stay there. There was no room, so I told them I have someplace where to go. And I went back to the committee. I slept overnight over there. She found out. She was real upset, but I didn't want to, since they were very nice to take me in, to let me stay there. I didn't want to burden them if I knew there's no room. And I met an old neighbor of mine. She knew, old friend. She knew I went to see her, but I didn't meet her, and I couldn't give her an address where to meet her. So I told her friend I was there. She was looking for me for a week, but then she met me in the committee. Stayed with her for a few days, and I met a friend of mine. Then we decided we're going back to Czechoslovakia, to Germany. or to the P camps. There's no use to stay in Poland. I couldn't. I find out I don't have anybody left. So one day we got up and we went on our road. Beginning, we stayed in another city for a few weeks. We stayed in Częstochowa a few weeks, and we were two girls. We were not really. We were afraid to go by ourselves, so we made some kind of legal papers, and we went back to Germany. One of my friend found out there came lists from people from Germany who has relatives who, in one list she saw her brother is alive in Feldafing. So we decided one day we are going back to Feldafing. And we took off. We went back to Feldafing. We went through Katowice. Then we went to Pilsen. From Pilsen there was a transport to Landsberg. We got off in München, and from München we went to Feldafing. Well, her brother was looking for her, so he wasn't in the camp when we arrived. We stayed in Feldafing for a while, and then since our transport went to Landsberg, we went to Landsberg. And her brother came, found out that she met her brother. We lived in the P camps. Like in the concentration camp, we got free food, no clothes. The beginning. Later on, it got a little bit more normal. We lived about 10 people in a house. It wasn't a normal life. We were young, we could make it. And over there I met my husband in 1945. And did I get married? Got married in 46. I met him around 9. We came to Landsberg, it was the end of 45. It was in August. So we got married in 1946. And he was a policeman and he worked, and we were still waiting to go away. Meantime, I had a baby. Then there were registrations. We planned to go to Israel. But in the meantime, there were registrations to United States, so we registered. And we came to the United States when there was the mass immigration. We did not have any relatives here. So we came in 1949. My baby was born in 1947. And we came in here in 1949, in April. We didn't know where Memphis is. We were worried where we're going. We didn't know Memphis on the map. Everybody knew about New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, but we didn't know what Memphis is. And we came in April 1949. I still don't know who picked us up from the train. My husband got a job. I stayed home. Let me know.
From questionnaire number 1, the name of your ghetto you say was Lodge.
Yeah.
Could you tell me the exact dates of your stay there? And in the following questions, give the relevant details for all the ghettos in which you were. Well, you were only in Lodge.
I was only in Lodge. The ghetto started in 1940, May 1st, was closed. And I left it in 1944, around August 20th.
Okay. Were you in the same town before the ghetto was set up? If not, in what places were you between September 1st, 1939 and the establishment of the first ghetto you were in?
I was in Lodge.
The whole time?
Yeah.
Well, you told us when the ghetto in your town was set up. What anti-Jewish actions were taken before the ghetto was established, including pogroms? State dates and details, organized by the Germans or others or jointly.
I can't recall anything particularly. The Poles were not too friendly, but I cannot recall any pogroms.
Not necessarily pogroms, anything. Anti-Jewish actions before the ghetto was set up. They made you wear the star.
They made us wear the star, they cut us to work, they cut some people and sent them away to other cities too.
Okay.
Yeah, they did this.
Do you remember the dates and details?
It was around December. I don't remember exactly the date. Matter of fact, around December they locked up some part of the city and got some people and sent them away. But people, some of them never came back. Of course, they lived there for a while and then they were exterminated from over there where they sent them. About this time, we got afraid, and my mother packed up some things and my two sisters, and they went away to Kelts, to Hanchin, to another city. We did plan to go too, but then we knew once we come to another city, we won't have a house and a room and a bed, and it will be the same thing over there. In the beginning, we thought in the small city it will be safer, but after my mother came back, she said, at least here we have a bed where to sleep. So my sisters went to another city, and I stayed with my parents.
So you don't remember any other anti-Jewish action besides the wearing of the star, the curfew, and the war?
The curfew, the burning of the synagogues. The burning of the synagogues.
When was this?
This was around November. They burned the two synagogues.
You remember any details?
Oh, one synagogue, we lived right across it.
So tell me about it.
They set up in daytime. We knew in daytime that they're going to burn the synagogue. They set up and they made some kind of movie. They caught some people. They talked to them. I heard about it. Wasn't there. And in the midnight, they burned the synagogue. My mother wasn't home. She stayed with her younger sister. Her husband ran away, and he was somewhere in Germany. She didn't know where. And she stayed with her. So it was horrible. We watched the fire. They tried to pour water on the houses, not to burn the houses, but it burned all night, the synagogue. This was the largest synagogue in Lodz, the Altstädter Shul. It was horrible to see fire all night and not to be able to do anything. And we lived right across it.
Do you remember anything else?
I think that's enough when you watch burners.
Do you remember any other anti-Jewish actions?
I don't know what to call anti-Jewish actions.
Anything against the Jews?
This was enough. Caught for work and send them away and burn the shuls and curfews. I think this was as much as I can remember between that time, between setting up the ghetto.
Did any of your family live in the same ghetto with you?
Immediate family?
Mm-hmm. Any kind of family?
Yeah. My aunts, my mother's sisters, two sisters and husband, cousins. Yeah. My immediate families, I was just with my parents. My sisters were in Hanchin, Kelts. I said before they left the city.
What about your brothers?
I had one brother which lived originally in Hanchin.
What work did you do in the ghetto?
I worked at the straw resort. I mentioned it before. I sold shoes.
The only place you worked was in the straw shoes?
Yeah, all the time.
Okay. If you were a refugee in the ghetto from another place, what was the local inhabitants' attitude towards you? That doesn't apply.
No, it wasn't.
If you stayed in your hometown, did your townspeople view refugees from other How did your townspeople view refugees from other places? Give details regarding refugees, numbers, places of origins, dates of arrivals, anything you can remember.
We had refugees from all around Poland, around Lodz. Matter of fact, when in Lodz, when the ghetto started, there were 70,000 only people, Jews from Lodz. At the liquidation, there were left about 15,000. Of course, there were more people in the ghetto, but those are people which came in. There were people from Czechoslovakia and from Germany. And there were people from around large, small cities, small places. It was harder for the Germans. The Germans were used to more luxury, and they took it much harder than we. We were not used to live in as much luxury. Some Germans didn't, they say they don't know why they are here. They didn't even know they are Jews. They were second generation. And they were either converted, but they still were there. And they took it very hard. They died, mass dies.
How did the original people from Lodz feel about the people who came in?
You know how this is when people, they didn't feel it's up of the person. You really cannot judge a people. It's up of the individual. Everybody was in trouble. Everyone, some people are hungry. You don't know, you cannot imagine what goes through their head. The only thing they want is food. And you getting selfish. You're just thinking about yourself only. So there were some friendly, some not. I personally got in contact at work with some from our other country. Personally, I didn't get too close in contact with them. So I cannot be just, but in general, people's attitude changed so much. People the beast got out of some people. When you get hungry, you really change so much. Some people, when they got to a position, they thought the war will always be there. That will never end. And there was no consideration one for the other. Everybody thought for themselves.
When the ghetto was first set up, were you allowed to leave? And for how long did this go on?
What do you mean by leave?
Were you allowed to go out of the ghetto when they first set it up?
It took them a few weeks to set it up. Once it was closed, you couldn't leave. But until it was closed, you could move. It was dangerous. Some streets you had to take off the mark to go. I did it, but you had to look Gentile, but otherwise you got into trouble. I did go. I did look like Gentile, and I did go several times, but I was scared to death. After I went every time, I said I don't go anymore. But once it was closed, it was no way to get out. You see, Lodz was counted in the Third Reich. So it was, once it was closed, it was no way. It was suicide to go out. I wasn't so brave.
What was the approximate size of the ghetto, and was there one or more ghettos in your town?
No, there was one ghetto. I cannot tell you the approximate size. I don't know the approximate size. I know the streets where it was located.
Okay. Do you know the surrounding streets?
It started on the Alte Stadt, and it went down up to the cemetery through Marachin. It was, at the size I cannot tell you.
You don't remember any other streets?
Where the wire was?
Yeah.
Where the wire was?
That enclosed the ghetto.
Well, the ghetto was divided in two parts because you had a bridge to cross. There was one street, a large street, it's Gerska. This was out from the ghetto. But this divided the ghetto, so you had two bridges to cross in two places. I don't remember where one was on the projection gas, and the other one I don't remember exactly where it was. Two places where there was a bridge to cross. But when they started to liquidate the ghetto, the first thing, they closed up the bridges. So the people from the other side of the bridge came to us. I lived on the large part. This was a smaller part. The large part went through Brzezina till Brzezina in 96. Then it went out of Marcin. Before the war, Jews didn't live over there. This was a strictly Gentile neighborhood, and Jews seldom lived over there. To the cemetery, to the new cemetery, this was the new cemetery, the old cemetery was in the ghetto. The new cemetery, you had to go from the back, because the front part was out, didn't belong to the ghetto. It was a new, I don't remember. From one side, the street I remember was to the Brzezina gas. But then, on Marcin, I wasn't familiar too much with it. I don't remember the streets, because it was not a Jewish neighborhood.
Okay. Was there a wall, a wooden fence, a barbed wire fence, or no physical boundary?
Barbed wire.
What was the organization of guard at the gates? Hours of entry, pass systems, nature of guard, whether they were Jewish, German, Polish, or other?
Only German. There were no passes, no gates, nothing. There was no contact with the outside.
Okay. Did you have any knowledge of what went on outside of Nazi territory? Were there radios, underground newspapers, or leaflets? Did you send or receive letters from abroad? Through whom and when?
In the beginning, there was mail. Very slow, but we still could send mail. Matter of fact, when my father passed away, I still could send mail, could notify my brother. This was in 41. This was in March 41. Later on, there was no contact with the Autobahn at all. Unless somebody hit the radio, that's all what it was, and there were very few.
So you had no idea of what was going on outside of Nazi territory?
We didn't know anything what was going on.
When did you know the truth about the extermination, about the gas chambers?
When I came to the concentration camp.
You had no idea about it in the ghettos?
No.
Did you have any personal or family plans to escape? What were they?
No, I didn't. I really didn't. I had a mother. My mother was old. My mother wasn't young then. And I didn't.
What did you eat in the ghetto at different times? What was the size of the ration, the method of distribution, and who distributed it?
We got 25 decagram bread. Sounds like a big piece, but it looked like lime.
For how long?
What?
For how long?
For day. It was a very small piece. We got, I think, for 3 or 4 days at a time, which was the worst part of it, because sometimes you ate it in 2 days. In 2 days you didn't have anything to eat. We had a limited amount of vegetables, if they had them, a limited amount of sugar, very little. We got a soup at work. And this was the main diet. We did not have no milk, no eggs. We got a limited rationing of meat. It was horse meat. In the beginning, we didn't want to eat the meat. It was not kosher. Matter of fact, my father never ate it. He passed away before we even started to eat it. Then to survive, we decided we'd go and eat it. The only thing you could make out of it was hamburgers. You got about a few decagram a month. And sometimes I didn't get even this because the lines were long, they ran short on it, and we didn't get it at all. And this was the main diet.
Who distributed it? And what was the method of distribution?
We got a rationing, if I remember, for 2 weeks, which was bad too, because sometimes you finished it in a few days, and then you were left without anything. You could live only on the soup, which you got at work. It wasn't sometimes they ran out of things.
Who distributed the food?
Jews.
They hired people.
Yeah, you see, people got jobs. To distribute food, to be at this, you had to have protection to get a job over there. You have to had some kind of pull to get a job like this. And sometimes they ran out. We got sick. My mother was sick. She ran out of calcium. She couldn't walk. She needed some vitamins. What I did is I sold my bread to buy the vitamins. That's all.
From questionnaire number 2, please answer the following questions for each of the camps in which you were. The date of the arrival at the camp, from where and by what method of transportation?
To know exactly the dates, I cannot remember. I can give approximately. To Auschwitz, we came in around the 20th or 23rd, between the 20th and 25th of August. We left there 1944. We left there and we came to Christianstadt. It was a few days later, so I really, exactly the date I cannot remember. I was in Christianstadt from approximately the end of August to the end of November. And then I went to Parsnitz. And Parsnitz I was told May 9th.
Did you arrive alone or with members of your family, and what happened to them?
To Auschwitz I arrived with my mother, but in Auschwitz they separated me from my mother. And from then on I was by myself.
Was there a selection on arrival, and did you know what the selection meant?
There was a selection. I did not know what it meant.
Upon your arrival in Auschwitz?
I did not know what it meant, yes. But while I was here, I figured out what it was.
Describe the location and size of the camp, its guard system, and when was the camp set up, if you know?
No, I don't know when this camp was set up. Christianstadt, I don't know. Auschwitz, I don't know. But Christianstadt, I don't know when it was set up. There were 1,500 girls there. The first arrived were the Czechs. It were managed only by the Czechs. The second arrival were the Hungarians, and the third were the Polish.
Where was this?
Christianstadt.
Where was Christianstadt?
Really and truly, I don't know. It was somewhere around, they say, not far from Berlin. It was a forest area, only camp. We never saw a city nearby.
What was the guard system there?
There were Germans, women, few men. And then there were from the Häftlings, there was the Judenälteste. And it was set up from the Czechs. I told you before. It was run by the Czechs.
And what about in Parsnitz?
Parsnitz was a building. You see, where Christianstadt had wire around, Parsnitz has been a factory building. And it was run by Polish. I don't know how many were, but there was a big transport of Hungarians which came right before we came. The Hungarians were very mistreated. I'm sorry to say, because it was run by the Polish. It was run by the from Silesia, from Galicia, and I don't know how many there were. That camp was established in 1940, and it was a camp which was run a long time. So I really don't know how many it was. It was not wired, it was a building. It was run mainly by the Häftlings, by the prisoners.
Name the commanders, officers, and men that you remember and characterize them.
I don't remember any names.
Okay. Do you remember any characters?
Characters? Everybody was a character. Everybody was a character. I don't even remember the name of the Judenälteste, which wasn't Parshnitz. I don't remember the names. I really don't, because I wasn't familiar with them.
How many Germans guarded the camp? How many non-Germans, Ukrainians, Lots, etc.? Were the Germans SS or did they belong to other units?
I don't remember. The camp in Parshnitz wasn't guarded. As I told you before, it was a building and it wasn't guarded. We were inside it and that's it. I don't know what was going outside. We just went out when we went to work. Where Christianstadt was a forest. There were put up barracks in a forest. What was before, whether this was put up just for the camp, I don't know. And the Christianstadt was guarded by Germans. I don't know which ones they were. I don't remember. I think by the SS. But the Parshnitz were run mainly by the Polish. They had a building outside, which the Germans stayed at it. Of course, they must have been watching it pretty closely. But at the time when we were there, this was the best place we could be because there was no place where to run away. Since it was right short before the war did end, and it was the best place we could be.
Do you remember incidents that could be used to accuse individual Nazis as war criminals?
No.
What was the composition of sex, Jews and non-Jews, towns or areas of origin?
Mainly we were female, only Jews. And Christianstadt were from Czechoslovakia, Hungary and Poland. Equally divided, 500 from each. Parshnitz was only from Poland. Right before we came over there, there came a transport from Hungary, around 500.
What did the work consist of?
In Christianstadt, the work consisted of building roads, digging ditches, ammunition factories, and building. And in Parshnitz mainly is textile, making thread out of raw material, gas mask. At the end, before the end of the war, building trenches.
Describe the capos, good ones or bad ones?
There wasn't a capo system in those camps. We had the Blockältestes in Christianstadt and the Judenälteste. And the same thing was at the Christianstadt. I wasn't really have a contact. It was not a big camp.
Were they good or bad?
Well, like you know, and anybody who gets power tries to use it most of the time.
Describe the food.
The food in Christianstadt consisted mainly of bread and boiled potatoes and with skin. I don't remember if we had some meat sometimes. But when the weather was bad, it got cold, we didn't get, the food couldn't get to us. It was a forest. I don't know how far it was, must have been very far from a city. And they brought the food mostly every day, every other day. So if they couldn't get the food to us, we didn't get anything. Mainly for Sundays, they usually find a punishment. They managed through the week to find a punishment not to give us food. Parshnitz was a different organization. Parshnitz, we got bread and soups. I don't remember if we got ever meat, maybe once in a while. This was the main diet.
Describe the daily routine.
The daily routine. The daily routine was Christianstadt was at sail uphill. We got 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock we had to be out for the sail uphill. Till they count us and they recount us. Then we had to line up to go in the kitchen, get our rationing of bread, and then we had to line up everybody to their group to go to work. It was dark, cold. In Parshnitz, there was no sail uphill. It was a different routine. The Judenelters, they woke us up with Christianstadt, the Germans knocked with the rifles at the door, and it scared the hell out of you. And Parshnitz, the Judenelters, they woke up, must have been about 7 o'clock, not so early. We did not have sail uphill. We had to get ready, get dressed, we'll go in the kitchen and go to work, which it was much easier system. And at night we got the soup too. Don't remember if we got any food at work. Remember one thing, I once went on a scale with my with a coat and a pair of wooden shoes, and the German watched the scale and she almost fainted. She was scared how much I weighed.
How much?
I don't remember, I think about 40 kilograms, which is about less than 100 pounds.
And what about at night when you came back from work? When did you come back?
Oh, it was dark, 6 or 7 o'clock till we finished the work, until we got together. It must have been about 6:30, 7 o'clock. We did not come back all together. Each group came back at one time. We ran to the kitchen to get our soup.
And what about at night?
Night we slept.
So you went straight after finished eating, you went to sleep?
No, you didn't have much place to walk around. We had a bed. We ate the food on the bed too. You know, we had bunk beds in Christianstadt, on top and the bottom. And this, we were in a room with 18 bunk beds, 36 girls. That's in one room. It was not a too big room. Just beds. So we ate on the bed too.
Were people killed? How, when, by whom, Germans or non-German guards? And were there actions in the camp?
Well, in those camps, I don't remember anybody getting killed. I remember in Christianstadt, somehow a baby was born. How that lady from our transport, how she got through Auschwitz, I don't know. But she had a baby, and they kept her in the hospital with the baby up till they liquidated Christianstadt. I left a little bit before. Christianstadt, when they liquidated, they walked to Bergen-Belsen. Then later on, they made a sale appeal and wanted anybody which knew if anybody who was pregnant to walk forward. And nobody did tell them, but nobody was pregnant. And they didn't kill anybody. They kept her in the hospital with the baby up to the end. The baby was kept in paper. In paper, yeah. Kept for about 2 months, 3 months. I don't know what happened later on with it.
Were there attempts to escape?
Not as I remember. I remember there were in Christianstadt, there were a lot of cases of epilepsy. They said they put something in the food. Few cases. I don't know why. Few cases. In the morning, the girls didn't know anything what happened. They said they put something in the food. We couldn't figure out what. There was one case in our room where we were. It was terrible. No, I think it was a case of epilepsy. She blacked out in the regular routine and got up later, and that's it. But it happened very often in Christianstadt. What did you ask?
Were there attempts to escape?
Escape. I didn't hear about it.
Was there an organized underground, planned resistance, or contacts with the outside?
No.
Were there any
If there
attempts?
was, I didn't know about it.
Were there any attempts at cultural activity?
And Parshnitz. Parshnitz was a camp which was organized in 1940. See, it has been in existence. That camp was a very good camp in the beginning. There were few girls and they worked, they had good food, this is what they always told us. They got correspondence with home and they got their clothes, but later on, one owner from the factory, a German, he was very good. They had good food, they said, but later on there were two factories. The other one complained, so they combined them both and they had to go out to work. So this was an organized camp. They had some shows they put together, the girls, just to make it a little entertainment for themselves. And this was the only cultural we have.
Were there any children in the camp, hidden or open?
No, there were no children. There were some young girls around 15, which were there, but no. This only that one child, which I said just before, which was born in the camp and kept till the end. What happened, I don't know.
What were the relations between the Jewish inmates? Was there any antagonism between groups from the same town, between groups from different towns, between Polish and other Jews, between Jews and non-Jews? Please give details.
Yes.
Yes, what?
There was antagonism. Well, the Polish, for example, in Christianstadt, the Polish were the underdog. They were the last ones to come in, and the Czechs were the top. And in Parshnitz, there was very much discrimination against the Hungarians. They didn't treat them nice.
Can you give some details?
I cannot remember details, but that was not association. Even we were a small group. We came from Lodz mainly. We were 20 girls, all around Lodz. This was the transport from Lodz, but the people, not all of them were from Lodz. They were from the Lodz ghetto. And they were not too friendly with us too. So who was at the power felt on top. Who came in the last were on bottom. That's what it was.
Did you receive help from fellow inmates? Please give details.
No, I didn't.
Were you ill, and how did you recover?
No, I wasn't ill. I wasn't ill.
Was there medical attention of any kind, official or clandestine, by German or Jewish personnel?
And there was a hospital. They didn't do much in the hospital. They didn't have medication. When anybody got sick, they went to the hospital. And later on, people were not too much afraid to go to the hospital because we knew Auschwitz was liquidated, so it was not danger to send back to Auschwitz. And Parshnitz belonged to Gross-Rosen. Gross-Rosen was liquidated too, I think, so there wasn't a danger. Some people were afraid if they were really sick to go to the hospital. But by that time, we were not afraid anymore. They didn't have no medication, they couldn't do much, but you could stay in the hospital, just stay in bed.
Was the medication given by German or Jewish personnel?
It was all Jewish personnel.
Describe the clothing and the sanitary conditions.
The clothing. Well, I did not wear a hashik. I wore civil clothes in both camps. Matter of fact, here in Parshnitz, they all had their own clothes. We got what we got in Auschwitz, but we didn't wear the uniforms. And the sanitary conditions, Christianstadt, we had a bathroom outside. We had to go to the bathroom outside. Middle of the night, sometimes we were afraid to go out. Could be shot because it was watched by the Germans. Auschwitz, it was a factory building. It had a inside latrine. Well, it wasn't too clean. We had to clean it. That's all I know.
Did you or anyone else receive mail officially or parcels?
No, I didn't. By the time when we were there, nobody did. By the time we came over there, nobody was left to send mail. By the time when we came to Parshnitz, the girls used to get mail from home. But later on they didn't, because their parents were already killed. They didn't have anybody to get mail from anymore. So, but at the time we came to the ghetto in 1944, the mail was not anymore working for us.
That's all this interview.